we've tried just emailing, we tried just LinkedIn, we've tried. I had people just calling leads too before, and nothing works as better than doing all of the above because you don't know what channel, which prospect likes to communicate in.
Welcome to Pipelineology, the business-to-business podcast for agencies, consultants, coaches, and businesses looking to build a pipeline of hot prospects ready to buy their products and services. Never wonder where your next client is coming from. To learn more about our strategies, services, and for resources on building your sales pipeline, visit pipelineology.com. Now, on to the show.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Pipelineology. I'm your host, Gary Rublinger, and today I am joined by the founder of Outbound Advantage, B2B appointment setting, marketing, and sales expert, Matt Fabrico. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm excited. As I said before we started recording here, that every time I talk to you, I feel like I'm learning something new about the cutting edge of just B2B prospecting and getting appointments, because I know you are out there testing stuff all the time.
All the time.
So I was really excited to get you on about, cold email and processes. But before that, for anybody who's not familiar with you or your company, can you give us a little bit of background about yourself?
Sure. Been in business and doing this for about 4 years now. We probably started off like everybody else 5 years ago, doing Facebook ads, trying to run an agency, sell to chiropractors, dentists, things like that. Had a partner doing that. We went our separate ways. I was kind of the guy that was getting appointments, bringing on clients, so I figured I was pretty good at it. So 4 years ago, I decided to start an outbound agency, helping B2B companies generate appointments, get high quality appointments on their calendar. We've transitioned a bunch of times to make the service better and better. We're currently working with a bunch of clients now, bringing on tons of appointments. We're incorporating new systems every single day. We work with companies that are usually somewhere at from 800,000 to 10 million. They have a product or service that's worth at least 10,000. I would say most of our companies are technologies and SaaS companies for the most part, as well as we're getting into the industrial sectors now. We feel that there's a huge opportunity there that we can really help them as well. Perfect. For any B2B company, really, there's different techniques though, right? So this is where a lot of people I feel get it wrong, where they use if they're targeting local businesses, there's a different approach than you're taking when you're reaching out to a company that's doing 50 million a year. Or if they're doing 500 million a year, there's a different approach that you want to take. So it's really for anybody who's doing B2B, you just want to adjust your approach for your target market.
That's very interesting. So when it comes to, I guess, if you want to kind of jump into like the cold email side of it anyway, before we even get started, I know you kind of mentioned that you don't just start sending emails and say, hey, I want to send emails today. Can you kind of walk us through what a process looks like if somebody says, yeah, I want to do kind of an outreach campaign, I want to use cold email. How do you get started with something like that?
Right. Yeah. I mean, definitely don't want to do that. I mean, a lot of people, they'll find a template on Google and just blast that template out to a bunch of people and get no results and think cold email doesn't work. So that's not the case. It's any sort of outbound campaign, you want to start with a market research phase. So you want to find out your buyer persona, ideal customer profile, people who you're reaching out to, figure out their pains, wants, desires, and then you want to figure out how your solutions could bridge that gap. And you could do this in a couple different ways. The best ways that we found doing that market research is really looking at job boards. So if you're going after VPs operations in the manufacturing sector, you just look for VP's operation job boards in the operation sector, and the manufacturing sector, and look at their day-to-day roles, see commonalities there, see what they're doing, and then you basically see how your product or service can help them with their day-to-day activities and help their company grow. So that's where you always want to start. That's before anything. This is where 90% of the people miss the boat. And it's grueling tasks. I know people hate doing it, but it's the most important piece.
So you're using the job boards to figure out what the messaging should be like, or what's going to be relevant to that person?
Right. Yeah. So you want to figure out, you use those job boards to figure out, what their day-to-days are and what their company's expecting of them. You want to look at a bunch of them, right? And you want to find commonalities there. And then you want to figure out how your product or service can basically bridge that whole gap. And it don't have to just be job boards, LinkedIn profiles, Google searches, a great tool, Crystal Knows. I don't know if you know what that is, but it's basically a Google plugin that builds disc profiles on each person. It gathers a bunch of information and it lets you know how they like to be approached, if they're introverted, extroverted, and basically a whole bunch of things about them. And then you could also find commonalities there.
So now, are you also kind of using those job listings to figure out the right roles to contact, or do you have the role you want to target in mind when you do this, when you're looking at the job boards, or do you kind of use that to let you determine, here's what we're offering to somebody, now I got to find the right person to reach at these companies?
Right. So you want to build your ideal customer profile first, right? So you want to find the market, company sizes, the industries that you want to go after first. And then from there is the buyer persona piece, where there's different titles inside of those companies that you can probably reach out to, but you can help them all in a different way. So you want to look them all up and you want to create different, your messaging is going to be way different to the CIO than to the CTO, because I'm sure you can help them in different ways, even though your service or product does the same thing, right? But I'm sure you can reach out to them in different ways. Now, there is a caveat to this where, I know there's certain people that you might be listening that reach out to local companies. There's usually in local companies, you're only reaching out to the owner. So it's a big difference. That's why the outreach campaign for those people will be completely different to companies that are larger.
Okay, so you got to take a very customized approach to just depending on who you're reaching out to get results.
100%. Yeah.
Okay, so that's why we don't just go to YouTube and find whatever the first cold email template that's out there is.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And first of all, that person probably saw that email 1,000 times if it's out there. But yeah, templates are good to take the frameworks from them. So templates are great, but you don't want to use it word for word. What you want to do is take the frameworks and then put your own basically copy inside of those frameworks.
So do you have suggestions on the types of messaging that can be effective, or kind of frameworks as you're thinking about who you're going to reach out to kind of figure out what to say?
Yeah. So, for our first message, each message is a little bit different, but the first message is usually pretty similar to every single person. Obviously, the messaging is different, but the framework is the same. So it's hi, first name. We usually add a personalized snippet in there, which is something we found that's personal to them. And it makes the reason why we're reaching out to better as well. What a lot of people don't realize in cold emails, people see that first line. So that helps the open rates as well. A lot of people just look at the subject line, but it's the first line as well that helps increase those open rates. From there, we either go into a question to capture their attention, or we'll go right into a value statement where we're always focusing on outcomes. Never talk about your product, never talk about the benefits of your service in the email. Nobody wants to list the benefits. They only want an outcome you can provide. So focus on the end result that your product will provide. And I guarantee just with that, you'll get better results. And then from there, we usually have a call to action. And then sometimes for some of our clients in the PS section, we might add a credibility statement. We add different things in the PS section, but sometimes we can add a credibility statement saying, hey, we just we've just helped a company similar to yours. You want to name that company, get X result. And this kind of says, hey, we helped them get the result. You look exactly like them. We can help you get to that same place.
Wow, that's actually really, really good stuff. So I mean, everybody listening at home, go back about 2 minutes and just take some notes down. I know I was there on how to kind of approach that. So you said you're not just sending one message, you're sending a sequence of messages, right?
Correct. Yeah. And I know we spoke a little before the call. We do a little bit more than just cold emailing. So, but yeah, typically just the email alone, we're sending 6 to 8 messages. And I know a lot of people stop at 4 because they think 4 is the magic number for some reason. But I mean, we sent millions and millions of emails, and I know other experts before me who send millions of emails. And little do you know, the 1/3 of positive replies come from message 5 through 8, especially when you're reaching out to somebody in a business development role. So if you're reaching out to an owner, somebody who's trying to grow revenue, you want to reach out to them more.
So how are you keeping that many messages to the same person out of spam?
We have a whole deliverability team. That's we can have a whole interview just on deliverability, but pretty much you have to have similar activity. You want to start out. You want to have obviously the obvious SPF, DKIM, DMARC setup, where we use G Suite. The platforms that we use Lemlist, and we're on their beta, but we're also using reply.io for some campaigns as well. And the reason for that is because we do a multi-touch sequence on different platforms. But to get back to your question, deliverability, it's really just engagement. So Gmail wants to see that your emails are being opened and read and replied to. So we have a whole team that's sending and replying to emails. Lemlist does this, by the way. They have a Lemworm feature that's pretty good. But we actually have our own team that does that just because we like to send value. So it's really all about engagement at the end of the day. I mean, that's what it comes down to, yeah. And you want to ramp up too. I didn't want to leave that out. You don't want to go out and just send 200 emails day one. You want to start slow. First of all, you don't even want to do that anyway because you want to make sure your messaging is working. This is another thing that I see a lot where people will just send out 200 or 500 emails, not even knowing if their message is resonating yet. So you want to ramp it up little by little, and that'll help your deliverability as well.
That's you're sharing some great golden nuggets here. Mm-hmm. So for somebody who's looking at this saying, okay, this sounds great. What should somebody expect if they're going out to doing this and to say, yeah, these are the elements that make a successful campaign. These are the benchmarks we're looking at versus this isn't working. Are there certain expectations that somebody should, kind of go in prepared for so they kind of know?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on your market as well, right? So obviously, if you're going to reach out to smaller companies, your response rate, I could imagine, is going to be a little bit. Well, actually, let me take that back. It depends on the industry as well. So there's a whole bunch of factors that go into this. I don't want to mislead anybody, right? So, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into this, but expectations, benchmarks that we like to go for our clients is we like to see a 2 to 3% meeting the book ratio, which means if we add 100 contacts to that campaign, we want at least 2 to 3 appointments booked. And that's for our clients. after a certain amount of time, we want to increase that. But for what we have a pilot plan. That's our main goal for the pilot, is to get that 2 to 3%. And then we try to look to see if there's ways to increase that. And then we can start ramping up the campaign from there. But I would definitely, in the beginning, you have to test a bunch of things. I wouldn't expect 2 to 3% off the bat. Even when you do your homework really well, you're going to get feedback from the market. So look at your replies, even the negative replies. Sometimes there's things that you can look at inside of those replies, and you can use that for your next campaign to get a better response rate.
That's great. So I know you go beyond cold email. I know we were kind of talking about this a little earlier, is that you don't just rely on cold email to get results, especially to kind of keep things consistently producing.
Right.
You have a really impressive multi-touch approach. I've seen some of your flow charts that you shared. So could you kind of touch on, I guess, what that looks like, how you go beyond the cold email?
Yes. So, we added multi-touches. We've tried everything. And with the multi-touch, just to let you know, just to give you some numbers, we saw 1,100% increase in the amount of appointments booked.
Oh, wow.
It's a huge increase from just cold email. So we added multi-touches. So after we get the list, I can give you a picture. After we get the list of prospects, you could do one or two things. You could take that list, the emails, and put them in ad roll, start a retargeting campaign. At the same time, go out and find those people on LinkedIn, start engaging with their posts, things like that. Let them just start recognizing your name, and then send your first email. Make it personalized. Make sure it's personalized so you're standing out. You don't have to personalize the whole email. There's a whole conversation about that as well. There's a really targeted campaign. If you have whales that you want to go after that are, multi 6 and 7 figure deals, then you want to personalize every single message. And if you have a really small market, but if you're going after a bunch of smaller deals, $10,000, $15,000, I would create a really targeted campaign, segment each buyer persona, and create a different campaign for each buyer persona, and then start the first email campaign. So you'll run the first email, let it go out. A couple days, there's no response. You can follow up with the second email. If there's still no response, then you try to connect with them on LinkedIn, referencing that you tried to send them an email, and you tried to, so they might go back to the email now and look at the email and respond to it just because you wrote them that LinkedIn message. We've seen that happen. Or you have a higher connection rate on LinkedIn because now they feel like it's a little bit more personal than just your generic connection template that you would use. From there, if there's still no response, call them. Most of the times you're going to get the voicemail, right? Leave them a voicemail. Hey, we sent you an email and a LinkedIn connection request mentioning the outcomes that you provide. Focus on the value proposition. What happens there? They don't call you back, but they will go back and look at the email. So it all kind of works together. So that's why we take multi-touches. We do a really multi-touch approach. Then we'll create a generic, even video template email for each persona as well. So it'll feel like it's really targeted and specific to them. Put that in the sequence. We'll send them an email. And you're just reaching out on multiple platforms, right? Because different people like to communicate in different ways. So some people might respond to the text. The email. Some people might respond to LinkedIn. Some might respond to the email. And it's just kind of what we're seeing. And it all works. We've realized it all works together. And watch, I guarantee if you just add that voicemail piece, I guarantee your email open rate will skyrocket just from that, because you're going to have more people going back to the email just to look at it.
So just literally just kind of pick up the phone, give them a call and leave a voicemail? Yeah.
Or we have an automated. So you also can put them right into a voicemail drop. If we have the ability, we find mobile numbers, and direct line numbers where it just leaves them a voicemail. You could do it. You could really do it either way. Yep.
So as you're saying all this, and you don't have to give away your secret sauce here, but how are you keeping track of all of this to do that?
You could do this all in reply.io. You could do it Lemless new beta feature. They have multitask now, Sales Loft, Outreach, all those tools that allow you to create those campaigns and stay on top of it.
Oh wow! So there's literally a tools out there to help you really do this type of multi-touch outreach.
100%. Yeah, and I don't mind giving it all away because if you like doing this 8 hours a day, feel free. One other tip that I have for that multi-touch campaign is once somebody connects with you on LinkedIn, don't send them a text. Pick up your phone and go to the LinkedIn app and send an audio message. You'll see a lot higher response rate from that just as well. Because you can't do it from your computer. You have to do it from the app, the LinkedIn app, but you'll see a great response rate from that.
Oh, that is really, really cool. Yeah, I know. I know. Before we jumped on here, you were talking about SDR teams or sales development representatives. I'm getting that acronym right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
SDR, BDR. Some people call them different things. So.
Yeah, I know. I know. When I worked in automotive, we called ours BDC, Business Development Center. So yeah, everybody's a little different, little bit different lingo. But so you're building these teams then to do this outreach.
Correct.
So this isn't like, it sounds like you got a lot of tools that help run it along, but I'm also hearing a lot of actual human personalized touch points in there to get these results.
You have to. Yeah, you have to have a human element in there. Yeah, I mean, we have a couple people working one campaign. We have one person getting the data. We have one person actual running the campaign day to day, replying, getting appointments on the calendar, and then we have callers as well.
So what are typical results you see from the campaigns you're running then? And I'm sure it varies from industry to industry, but are there any, on average, you see this many, booked appointments or anything like that from this whole multi-touch system?
Yeah, I mean, I can give you our numbers because I know it like the back of my hand. So, I mean, if we add 100 contacts to the campaign, we're booking for 4 to 5 appointments. And it's not off of the first message. So a lot of people get this wrong. It's over the course of a campaign. So 14 different touches over 3 months. We're seeing around 4 to 5 meetings. So there's a lot of follow-up that goes into it. So a lot of people, they'll send the first message and they won't get anything. And that's not your book ratio. The book ratio is over the whole campaign.
So I'm hearing is persistence on outreach.
Yeah, definitely. Now you have to be careful with this as well, though, because we target business development people, right? So they are used to outreach. They probably do outreach themselves. They respect outreach. So they don't mind being more aggressive. They actually appreciate it as long as you're coming in with value that you can add to them, right? A lot of people thank us for reaching out and following up. But there's different roles now in different companies, right? So if you're reaching out to a technical person, I wouldn't be as aggressive. I would still follow up, but I would wait a longer period between messages because they're technical people. They're not usually sales guys. They're not used to being, on the phone as well. They usually want to read something before you book an appointment. So there's different approaches for each role.
So you really have to give thought to who, kind of like you said at the beginning, is what that avatar of that person looks like.
Exactly. It all comes back to market research. So the most important piece of the campaign.
So do your homework.
100%.
Well, this is great. I mean, these are some amazing kind of tips you've given here so far. What else should I be asking you? Like what else should somebody know about this type of thing?
There's really a lot that goes into it. I know this is more, you want to focus a little bit more on email. Deliverability is probably the main factor. You want to make sure that you're delivering. I know spam filters got really strict over the last 12 months, we saw it too. That's why we have a deliverability team now to make sure that we're inboxing and we're maintaining 50, 60, 70% open rates across board. So you want to focus on that. Make sure that you have something in place. Like I said, it's about engagement, whether you create that engagement yourself, you try out Lemlist, the Lemwarm feature. There's other tools out there like Mailwarm that'll do this for you. You want to test out those things. So that's probably one thing I would focus on. And the second major tip that I can give is focus on outcomes. Keep focus on the outcomes of the people that you're reaching out to. You got to remember, if you're reaching out to a director of technology and your solution helps with something increasing revenue, he's probably not going to be super intrigued by that. So you might want to come at a different angle and figure out how you can help them in some sort of way, or just change your buyer persona.
Well, that's great. So, Matt, I really, really kind of appreciate you doing this. If there's somebody out there who says, I needed a system like this, I need a multi-touch, a outreach campaign, how should somebody get in touch with you?
Yeah, so you can go to our website and book a call, which is outboundadvantage.com. Take a look at our videos first. We can't help everybody. We're being a little bit more picky about who we're selecting as clients now. We're kind of revamp things. If you have a product or service at least 10,000 in value, you have a sales process in place, or a B2B company, then we could probably figure out something. And your market has to be big enough as well. If you have a really specific market, we don't really do complete ABM strategies, account-based strategies. So we want their market to be a little bit bigger. So just keep that in mind if you do want to reach out to us.
Well, that's great. Well, again, thanks so much for coming on, Matt. I really appreciate you doing this, kind of sharing this. I have a page full of notes already too myself. So I really appreciate you sharing. I'm gonna have to get you on the show again to talk about some of these other things. Like I said, every time I talk to you, learning something new. So
appreciate it.
Well, thanks, Matt. Take care and have a great rest of your day.
All right, you as well. Have a good one.
Thanks for listening to the Pipelineology podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode and look forward to seeing you on the next one. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider giving us a review on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you listen to podcasts.